Hi, welcome to our different kind of doula show. I'm Maureen Curis, and I'm here with my two show co-hosts, Colleen Hughes and Kathleen Putnam, and we are part of the Gentle Passage Doula Collective. And our show, A Different Kind of Doula, just shares ideas, topics that we feel are important to doulas or people wanting to hire doulas. So today we're going to start addressing challenges that doulas face when they're out in the workforce, working with clients. And there are challenges. It's not always hunky dory and easy peasy. So we want to just address those and how we face them, or how maybe give you guys some ideas on how to face them. So Kathleen, I'd love for you to kick us off.
So one of the challenges that I face, thanks, Maureen, I think is setting limits with myself, really knowing what I can and cannot do. As a doula, we're caregivers, and this is heart-centered work, and we want to be able to help people. And it's really understanding and defining what it is that you love and are able to do, and what is it that you're not able to do, and maybe someone else is better doing or can do right now. And so for me, when I hear somebody's pain and suffering and hurt and disappointment that there's not caregivers in the house, that they're not getting the support that they thought that they were going to get from our current healthcare system, and it could be any part of that system, that I want to fill in every gap. I want to help them with everything. And so a big part of this is about being resourceful and referring out. And that's a big part of actually what I spent doing today, and having to say, this month, I am not going to be able to go into someone's house and do bedside care, do companionship, and be there for that partnering that we do as doulas. That's sacred work that requires us to be full on intentional and be able to give people our undivided attention, and to be able to say, I can be at home talking to you on the phone and guide you, and be on Zoom and guide you through this process, but I cannot physically be there right now. So really figuring that out and doing great self-care.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I like that one part where you say you had to make a decision that you were not going to go and do enter someone's home and do, doula work. I think that's important. I always say, what is going to be the challenge? What are the challenges? What is going to be my challenge when I meet someone? Is it the medical? Is it the emotional? Is it the physical? Is it the spiritual? Is it a situational thing with the family? Is it financial? What is it going to be? And so here's the thing, you walk in and you don't always know what it's going to be. And one of the biggest, challenges is to define what it is that that individual needs. And I find it's holding space and acting as an intermediary if it needs to be done. So it's I think being a doula, you just don't always know what you're going to, in fact, you never really know what you're going to walk into. It changes.
I so agree. Each person is different, just like each of us. We're all different and we have different needs at different times. And so when we work with families, it's gauging what the needs are at the time that we're there, or at the time that we're working with them virtually. And you might be having to deal with different needs of different family members all at the same time while you're dealing with your client who it could be actively dying. So it's just juggling that and trying to adapt to the emotional aspects of the need of each person present that you are working with. Not that we'll be dealing with the emotional needs of every single person that's present, because the main focus is the client, or patient, as I like to call them from my nursing realm. But really, that's our main focus, but to try to keep track.
Right. So I love that juggle. I've worked with families my whole life, and I love giving everybody a piece of it. The physical part this time was really hard. What about you, Colleen? What challenge have you faced being a doula that
One of the big challenges I face with the cancer patients that I have been dealing with is one of the questions that came up from, for me at least, was how do I know when to stop chemo? And this was someone who, after their third round, really was having a struggle. She was married and she had an adult son, and she just was having a hard time thinking about one more round of chemo. When do I stop? Well, as a doula, my challenge isn't answering that. My challenge is to have her explore that and come up with what it is that has meaning for her, and go back over, okay, so tell me about your chemo treatments, because every chemo treatment can be very different for different people. And how do you feel after them, and what benefit do you have? Explore with her, find out what her illness means to her, what it is, what she understands about it. And in this particular case, I found after she had her third round, she actually came back and said, I might have a chance that this is lessening at this time. It doesn't mean it's cured. It just means it gives her more time. And my question was, well, how are you feeling right now? And she says, I'm feeling a little more hopeful. Okay, so hopeful is good. And it's always about quality of life. And what does that mean? And is she hanging on because of her son and her husband? I don't, frankly, personally, I don't think she was ready to give it up and hang it up, but that's not for the doula to say, ever.
Yeah, I love that, because you aren't acting as a medical practitioner. It's a different hat, or even a best friend or an advisor, but rather somebody who sits in curiosity and lets people explore that themselves and hold that tension of not knowing. Yeah, it's beautiful. Thanks. What about you, Maureen?
My biggest challenge is setting boundaries. I think that for me, as most of you know, I do a lot of end of life planning work. Well, I get to know these people and what their wishes are and what they would want. And then they think that, well, I know so much, I should be their, lead healthcare power of attorney, the healthcare agent. And having to step back and say, no, I can't do that. That's, not in the job description. It's and there's part of me that says, yes, I know what you would want, because we've had such in-depth conversations. Let me step into that role. And I know that I should not. And so I don't, but it causes some, well, why can't you? You would do better than, I trust you. I trust, that you know my wishes. So those are the hard times. That's really challenging for me, because I do want to say, yes, yes, I'll do it. But I have to say, no, I'm sorry. Let's explore other people that might be a good fit for you.
That's funny, because you've helped our family. I've had that request. Can Maureen be our consultant as our nurse too? So wearing those two hats, I can see that happening a lot.
And I have always said I fall in love with the people I work with, and I want to just surround them and make sure that they have the best that they can, and at the end of life. So knowing that the best that they can is with their family, or those that matter most to them, the family of choice, if not family of biological means, but to help them figure that out, like Colleen was saying, holding that space for them to figure that out. And that's not my role to be in that position.
Another
Yeah.
situation that's come up for me is not realizing how taxing holding that space and being with people in their grief, which is a lot of the work that I do, or working through some of the conflict and struggle about making some of these decisions when maybe two people aren't on the same page, and how physically exhausting it has been for me. I have, had plans to go do something else after having a consult or being with somebody, and just realized I have to lay down. Like, I am exhausted, or I have to find a way to fill up my own cup. And so really realizing that it can physically take a toll on me, and in a surprising way, very differently than my work as a healthcare professional.
Hmm. Then for me, I also just recently talked with a friend who lost her husband, and the biggest issue, and I actually did a family meeting with this particular group of family, was that it's how do you know, or how do you support that family or patient or client rather, who wants to hang on when and deny the whole reality of the situation. And in this case, it wasn't my it wasn't this particular person who wanted to hang on to her husband. She knew he was ready to die. It was the his daughter and that end of the family, and she had an immense problem with that. And I remember when I sat with that family, that was the challenge. And I did get a chance to talk to the daughter, but the daughter, he and I found out he had been on a ventilator at one point.
Oh.
And so, you know, once you start that route, it's really very hard sometimes for people to see, no, they're really dying. Without that ventilator, there is no life, or that person will die. And why, what would be the best for that person? I also found out he actually had written down he never wanted to be on a ventilator. And nobody saw that until later. And the daughter, of course, being in the medical profession herself, pushed, to have everything done. He did die at home, and he did die peacefully. But that to me is a challenge because of all the family conflict that you're dealing with. So you really have to walk in as a doula with a very calming presence and very resolute about being an advocate for the client. And that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. How do you stay calm? I think people want.
One of the things that I often do is meditation in my head, and I will do it. And many times I'll just send out loving kindness phrases. May they find peace. May they feel safe. May they feel love, and caring. I will say that over and over in my head because I do believe that that energy can be projected into the environment. That's just my thing about it, but it also keeps me calm.
I like that. It's okay to step away for a couple minutes, a few minutes, especially if there's a lot of tension. Step away. If you can't just step out of the room, go into a bathroom and just stand and breathe. Just breathe in and breathe out. Do your little meditation, whatever you need to take just those few minutes to recenter and regroup, and then go back.
I know I had a really hard time at an end of life where I really knew it would go more peaceful if everybody could get on board, and the person died without it feeling peaceful. Everyone would agree with me that was in the room. And it was really difficult because of that intention that we have as doulas, is to create more ease and peace and a loving atmosphere, kind of creating what we would want if we were dying. And as best as we can, what the person said that they wanted, and the family members with the best of intentions. And when those things aren't communicated and not known, or if there's disagreement, how painful that was to witness. And I did a very similar thing, just really uh, praying and meditating and sending good energy to everybody in the room, and even for the future of anyone who might look back and have regret. Because I think, especially at different developmental stages, when you're young, you might say or do things because of your where you are, just even mentally, developmentally, not really understanding the long-term consequences. And I just remember that really helped me, but it took me a lot longer. And I'm glad for developing more of that mindfulness skills exercises. But it's not something, the compassion and the mindfulness is something I have to work on every single day, and really just call out where I'm suffering. And you both have seen me cry, and you both see me be upset about different things, and really even blow my top at different things. And so I think it's also really important to find support for people who understand this work and be a part of a community and connect with people who you feel safe talking about what the work is like for you and how it's impacting you, again with confidentiality, but just how it's impacting you, and how to take care.
You shared that it is difficult when death doesn't go the way that we as doulas plan or hope, because we can plan, and I'm an advocate for planning how you want your death to be. There's more of a chance that you'll get it if you can plan and you can have the families talk. And we all know that that doesn't happen every time. And so we're planning for this peaceful, gentle death, and we're trying to encourage the family to participate in a peaceful, gentle death and transition to whatever's next. And it doesn't always work that way. And stepping back and giving yourself grace when it doesn't, and honoring the fact that we do the best we can when we are there. And that's a challenge, though. It's a challenge because we all relive, oh, if I had done this or if I had done that, maybe it would have been different. Maybe it would have, but maybe it wouldn't have. So to just stand in honor and grace of yourself, that you did everything possible as a doula to make it a peaceful and gentle transition, whether it worked out that way or not.
Maureen, that is one of the greatest challenges in being a doula. And it's one that I think every doula that I know both of you are committed to, dedicating the honoring of that dying individual and carrying out their wishes, and their right to die in the way that they have set forth. And so you're trying to ensure the instructions, that you've given or they have given pre and post, and you're trying to advocate for them. That is a huge challenge, because I think what you're saying is it doesn't really always work out that way. Which brings me to this other challenge, which there tends to be with every doula in their hearts: philosophical questions, such as, uh, what is a good death? We hear this, and we know that death can be very, very messy. And just like you described, Maureen, it doesn't always turn out the way you think it will. And so here you're here and you're saying, well, I'm here to help you have a good death. Well, what does that mean to people? Because many people don't know what a good death is. Good death could be without pain. you know um a good death could be, give me another year or two. you know but I heard something interesting today that really kind of made me start philosophically thinking, is that a good death really is what you do with your life, a good life. And so if you want to die peacefully at the end of your death, then you have to practice being peaceful during your life. And so it's usually at the person on their deathbed can't do those things. But as a doula, we know that we teach people across the spectrum. So we always want to keep that in mind. And are we afraid of death? That's the other philosophical question. Oh, you deal with death all the time, so you must not be afraid, right? I'm waiting for somebody to ask me that question. And then my answer is going to be intellectually, no, I'm not afraid. But emotionally, yeah, probably because there's a lot of unknown, you know.
I think that uh, having worked with dying people as they've taken their last breath, we've all seen every death is different. Some are peaceful and gentle, some are not. So, and we can't always judge what it's going to be at the very end. But what we can do is the point leading up to that. As a doula, we can make the environment peaceful. We can, nurture those that are at the bedside grieving the impending death of their loved one. And it makes me think back to a story when I was a nurse. There was a young man who was dying of leukemia. He had a bone marrow transplant that wasn't successful, and he thought it was because he didn't live a good life before, up to that point, up till a few years before he was diagnosed. But the night before he died, there was another young woman in the that also did not have a successful transplant, but she would visit all the patients' rooms, and she would visit this guy every day. And the night before he died, I was stocking the shelves, and I heard her in there talking to him and saying, you are going to heaven before me, but I'm coming right after you, and I will be there with you. I will, don't be afraid, because I'm coming right after you. And even though he had probably one of the most painful deaths I've ever been witness to, I thought, what peace she gave him. So that was, even though his actual physical death wasn't peaceful, the time before, what a great gift of peace and comfort she was giving him. So that's what I see us as doulas doing, giving that peace and comfort, even if those last moments or hours are not as peaceful as we hope they would be. We can create it leading up to that.
Right. And I was just, what a gift, just not feeling like you're alone. You're not the only one dying,
Yeah.
that connectedness
I
helps bring up that compassion is
I
so
sat
important.
outside that room and just cried, because I used to think she's an angel put on this earth. But to know that as a 22-year-old, you are going to die, and give someone else the peace and comfort that, she was sure he was going to heaven and she was going to follow right behind him. But we can create maybe not that same sacred space that she created for him, but something, we can hold them in that sacredness prior to the time of their
Sure.
actual death.
Yeah. You're making me think of the other thing I was going to mention that's hard about being an end of life doula, and a challenge for me anyway is allowing your heart to break open. Just allowing yourself to feel the heartache of watching people lose a loved one,
Mhm.
or maybe it not going well enough, or as in someone's mind, maybe it isn't as painless as we would like it to be, or maybe the person that they most wanted to see didn't make it show up in time to see them. Maybe words were left unsaid and there are people left behind, with regrets. So one thing about having regrets at the end of life, it informs us about how to live our life. But once we get there, it can be really helpful to be curious about those questions about if there are any regrets. And right now I'm working with people who are able to say, you have been a good parent, or you have been a good sibling. And so from a different perspective, so that the person isn't alone with those emotions at the very end, without being able to express them and without being able to connect with the people that they love the most. So I think that there's always room to be able to say, what is most important, and getting back to those big ones, that we love one another. Thank you for what you've done. Forgive me, I forgive you, and goodbye. And so using just those basic instructions, there can be so much that can change the dying process, the death and dying process. And for those of us who are left behind to grieve.
Those are such precious gifts for someone. You've mentioned twice now the word curious. And I love that word because with the doula, with curiosity is there holding space, but asking those questions, in a way, I'm curious today how you are. And, every week or every day could be very different for that person, but I'm curious. You don't necessarily have to say that word, but just by the formation of your question, do you have anything you have are regretting at this time? At this time, because maybe that's changed. And so those are the things. That curiosity is such a powerful word, and it's a tool.
It helps me stay curious and not judgmental. Like I'm just,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it looks like you're in a lot of pain. I'm just wondering, it feels like
Yes,
some
yes,
unfinished business here, but I just want to check in with you. I don't know.
yeah,
You just said it helps you stay non-judgmental, and that is a challenge for us. If we see, like as a doula, if I see something that I think it should be done this way, but they're not doing it that way, or they don't want it, well, they should know that they should do it that way. It's not my place to be judgmental. They get to do it any way they want. I can, guide, but it's their choice in the end, and to not take ownership or place judgment is a huge challenge.
Mhm.
And it's so important.
And practicing self-compassion for yourself when you do feel judgmental, you're going to feel judgmental, and that's completely human. And another real nice thing I always like to say is if you feel judgmental, or if I feel like I stepped on someone's toes, I offended somebody, is we can do that repair like we do in all of our relationships. I just need to check in with you guys and just see how that landed with you. I left and I'm not feeling good about it. So just trusting yourself. And that's one thing that I feel like doulas share, is that a lot of us have intuition and big hearts. And so just checking in and allowing yourself to be imperfect.
yeah. That's the key right there. That imperfect, and forgiving yourself. As you would forgive others, but forgive you and say, I'm gonna do better next time.
Right. Yeah.
What's that saying? Fail forward. We can fail forward as doulas. We learn how to do it better next time instead of beating ourselves up on how something went. How could I make that better next time? So,
Right, right.
well,
And share with the community, so that you get that support. I always think of this, you two and our Gentle Passage Doula Collective and all the groups I belong to, just kind of lifting me up and supporting me, and thinking about ways in which I can lift other people up and reassure, because through coaching and mentoring and training people, that's what's helpful, is to get that reassurance and feeling again like we're walking in unison alongside one another.
Kathleen, would you share about, you just mentioned training, and we have a training coming up.
We do. We are part of the Gentle Passage Doula Collective, and we are now training end of life and death doulas. And our first training is launching in 2023, and we're so excited that it's already half full. And so we would love for people to come to our website at gentlepassagedoulacollective.com. We have a couple webinars that are coming up in early January that you can register for and learn more about the training if you have this calling, this urge, or this interest as an end-of-life doula, because we are pioneers. It's not something that a lot of people know about. And we also offer death cafes. We'd love to have you come to death cafes. Many people who have been interested in the trainings have come so they can get a feel for what a death cafe looks like and to get to know one another more. And we will be offering online trainings as well. Is there anything else you guys want to add to that?
I
No?
think you've covered it.
And as always, come join us on our Facebook group, the Challenging Conversations. And that's where you can reach out and read our posts and some interesting information about end of life. There's good resources and up-to-date news about death doulas and end of life doulas. And we also want to always hear what people find interesting and what you wished we would bring to this show. And any show guests, if you'd like to be a guest on our show, or if you know someone who could bring some information to this show to make it more enriching and helpful to the community, we'd love to know about that too.
Great. This is, yeah, we have so much that we want to impart. So we hope you join us again next week, or just watch our replays. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back with another interesting topic for doulas next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.